Hello again. I want to talk about psychosis. I've had 2 psychotic episodes, but I want to talk about the last one I had, which was the most intense in 2016. I want to talk about a bit about what happened and like what's helped me afterwards, and try and some of the things I do to try and prevent something like that happening again. So yeah, 2016, in the months building up to 3 or 4 months building up to the episode, I was doing a lot. Life was going pretty well. I was very physically fit. And I guess, I was in a good place. I was in a good place. I was enjoying life. I was working as bricklayers, block layers, labourer at the time, and doing a lot of physically demanding work. And I was also boxing a lot, and I was really getting into my boxing, and was really enjoying it, as I say. And so obviously I didn't know at the time, but then looking back after what happened, it was because I was doing too much. It was an extreme. I didn't realise it at the time, but I was doing so much physical work and boxing. I think I just took it to an extreme. And also I didn't realise at the time, but I was neglecting my sleep. And I didn't think it was important because I was so excited about how things were going, and I was kind of buzzing about life and in a good place, like physically, or I thought mentally as well. But so that's what was going on, and it led to a boxing trip in England, in London, and that's when the weekend that I had my second episode. So I had a training session in a boxing gym in London. It was really tough, and that night I had a panic attack, which led to my psychotic episode. And so to explain a little bit about how I felt, and it was the same build up to my first episode. Both my episodes started with a panic attack, and which led to the episode. And so as I say, I'm just going to talk about the last one in 2016. It started at night, panic attack, and I ran away from the hospital. Not the hospital, sorry, the hotel that I was staying in, and that's when it began. And so you're not thinking rationally then. Well, I can't generalize, but I know I can only speak from my experience. But when the psychotic episode starts, you're no longer thinking like you do normally. You're not thinking rationally. You kind of go into almost a different reality, a different world, and it's kind of hard to compare to what we experience in this reality when we're fine and we're normal. So I ran away, and in my head I thought that I needed to get back to Jersey, and I was going to get to the ocean and swim back. That's what my goal was. That was what was going through my head when it first began. So I went to try and find the ocean, and then something happened in my head, and I decided that no, that was not possible. Thankfully, that I didn't actually end up attempting to swim back to Jersey. But I decided that I was going to beg on the street and make enough money to buy some food or whatever, and I ended up missing for 48 hours, and there was lots of craziness that happened during that time. I had delusions of grandeur, so I thought I was Jesus quite a lot of the time. I don't know why I feel like laughing a little bit at that, but it wasn't funny really at the time. And so, yeah, I was in London and the sun was out and I was singing songs and I was dancing down the street, and I thought I could harness the sun, and I was kind of on this super high. I just remember feeling super, I guess if you think you're Jesus, then I guess you think you're all powerful. I thought I thought I was untouchable, powerful. So yeah, that's what happened. And then that was the first day really, and then I was overnight on the street. So I was I don't remember sleeping at all. So I spent the night or whatever on the street, and then I woke up the next day. And then, as I say, I'm summarising, I'm being quite brief because so many things happened during that 48 hours. Well, in my head anyway, during the episode. But then the second day, for some reason, I thought that my salvation lied in finding my way back to the boxing gym that I did the session like the day prior. And so what I did was I would walk to the end of a street, look up at the sun, and in my head I was using the sun to guide me back to the boxing gym, well, where I thought my salvation lay. So I did that, and I don't know how long it took, but I did find my way back to the boxing gym somehow, and went in, and someone recognised me and realised that I wasn't in a good way or whatever. And it was at the time actually a new session was about to start at the gym, and I think the trainer said something like, everyone get the ropes, and I went to get the rope myself and even do the session, and someone like pulled me aside and took me into the office, and luckily someone called my dad. My dad was working at the airport at the time and managed to get a flight straight over pretty much within a couple of hours to come and get me. And so got on a flight. That was a tough experience, going through what I was going through, still in the midst of like the episode. Got home, Mum took me down the hospital. They said I don't think they really did much at the hospital, which was a bit surprising because I was kind of in an episode, and so they kind of gave me this saline solution is what I can recall, or what I remember. But obviously, I'm not really thinking rationally still at this point because I'm in the episode. And sent me home, and then I think the idea was to come back to hospital the next day because it was so late. It was early hours of the morning. So I went home, and they gave me this sleeping tablets or whatever. And I remember I think I got a few hours sleep, and I woke up really early in the morning. And I decided to go for a walk, and I walked up to the top of my estate, and I got this feeling of, as I say, I'm still in the episode and still feeling like powerful or whatever. And I decide I'm going to run onto the oncoming traffic. And I think that I've got the power to run through the cars. And so I was like kind of running on top of the cars until one of them stopped. I got into a van. My mum was chasing me at the time. Then I remember I stripped naked, and I thought I was back to the dawning of time. I thought I was the only human on earth, until the police came, and like I remember there being a few of them. I hit one. I kind of remember at the time, but I know this happened afterwards because I got charged or something because I hit a police officer. But I got rugby tackled to the floor and handcuffed and put in the back of a police van. And then they took me, thankfully, not to hospital. They took me straight to St Saviour's Hospital. They took me to the mental hospital. And then that was the beginning of, it was a few months at least. I think it was 3 or 4 months that I spent in hospital trying to recover from what had just happened, this episode. And so I was on anti-psychotic medication, and that was a crazy time trying to recover from this. And the medication, how it made me feel, I was like, most of the time I felt like a zombie, like I couldn't think on this medication, and it was horrible. I think obviously I don't really have positive things to say about medication. I think initially medication can help when you're in crisis, and it probably helped me to the initial stages of when I was in crisis to come back to like reality. But then at least in my case, it was a really negative thing trying to recover from what had happened whilst on high levels of medication that I don't think really helped, I think hindered. And it really made me feel horrible, and that, as I say, like couldn't think at all, like completely clouded and like zombie-like, and I just felt like dead inside. And and another thing that was hard in hospital was I was always seeing people like recover and leaving, and it was just months, and I just, in my head, I was like, I didn't think I was ever going to leave, and I didn't think I was ever going to get better. So that was kind of hard, like no one really explained, but people trying to, like nurses and people saying that, oh, you're not going to be in here forever and this is just a temporary place. But in my head I was like, no, I'm never going to get out of here. And I guess it's hard. I guess it was hard for them to explain, but it would have been nice to feel more comfortable in knowing that I was actually getting out of there and not going to be stuck in there forever, because that's what I thought. Get to the stages where I'm getting out of the hospital, and the transition from hospital back to like home, and with my parents, and trying to like slowly going back to normal. But when you spent so many months in hospital, it's like quite difficult. I remember struggling a lot with like just vulnerability when I was in. My parents just going to the shop, walking to the top of the road in the estate where I lived to go to the shop was really a super hard challenge, and I was scared, so vulnerable, didn't want to go. Didn't want to go to the top because I didn't want people looking at me for I was being judged. Just attempting to just walk to the top of my estate was like a super hard challenge, and I'd go halfway and come back and try again and come back. And I was only leaving the house really at night, after midnight, so that no one would look at me. And it was just remember feeling like as vulnerable as you can really be, I think. Well, maybe not, but I just felt like that level of vulnerability I felt was like, I can't imagine being any more vulnerable. So that gave me an appreciation of like how I can relate to people who are just like can't like struggling to leave the house. I can understand how people can feel like that. So what do I want to talk about next? I took a big gamble because I was on a lot of medication, and as I say, it was like really tough, and it was numbing my mind, and I couldn't think straight. And the amount of medication I was on, I remember at the time I was like asked, like, because you've got to go down the doses gradually, you can't just stop, especially in Jersey. It was, I think at the time I asked, like, how long is it going to take before I can stop the medication? And I think it was going to be something like 18 months that it was going to take to go down the doses until I could like wean off the medication. And so I guess I don't advise this, but it's one of the best things I did. It turned out, and it's one of the most proud moments I am of myself. But as I say, I don't recommend it. But I left on a flight. I went to Southampton when I was kind of just in the early stages, really, of recovering what had just happened. But because I couldn't get it into my head that I was going to spend so long on this medication, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I want to just stop the medication, but I didn't want to be in Jersey because I felt so vulnerable. I felt like people were going to judge me everywhere I went. Feeling like got sympathy for me, because I know people are living their lives, and I'm insignificant really to most people, but you don't think like that when you're in. You think that people are talking about you, and the paranoia, like you've been in St. Saviour's and like everyone's talking about it, and they're like so anyway. But I know they're not, because people have got their own lives going on, and they don't really care they didn't really care about me. But at the time I wasn't thinking like that. So I got a job in a casino in Southampton, and I stopped the medication completely. And I think I was around 10 months that I spent around 1 year. And I was proud of myself because I was in such a bad place mentally. But I held down my job, and I went to my job, and I stuck it out, and my mental health gradually improved and got better, and I did it on my own with no one around. But that's what I wanted. I didn't want anyone knowing. I just wanted people to treat me normal. And that's what they did, because they didn't know what had just happened previously. And so when I went to the job and I did the mistake, people was telling me off, or I was getting into trouble, and it was hard because I was making a lot of mistakes because I wasn't there mentally, and I was trying to hold this normal job down. But as I say, I somehow managed to continue with that job, and about a year later I came home, and I was in a way better place than I was a year previous. And that was, I guess, that was 2017. And that's when I started to not straight away, but try and focus on the things that I knew that helped me with my mental health, and I think helps most people. But because I think I'm maybe more susceptible than most to having mental health problems, I realised that I need to focus more than most on the basics, and that's eating well, sleeping well. Sleeping for me is, because it's been a common denominator in both my previous episodes, it's been a lack of sleep, and insomnia has resulted in the episodes. I know I need to prioritise that. So now I make sure, I'm not like absolutely regimental, like army strict on it, but I know I need to prioritize my sleep, and I know that's a big factor. So I think I do well in that, and I try to get my sleep and get my at least 8 hours or whatever, and I know that's important for me. And then exercise is super important for me as well. It always has been. I need them good chemicals in my brain going, and I need to do my exercise. So I prioritize my exercise as well. And I think diet is overlooked so much in mental health, and like, I don't know, from my experience, it's like people don't think it's connected, like your diet and your mental health, and I just think it absolutely is. And like, I remember, it's not, when I'm in recovery, there was like there was not actually, well, I think it's a super important time to, when people are recovering from crisis, to feed them like super nutritious food. And I think that has a big impact. And so now, in order to try and protect and defend myself from going back, having those experiences again, diet, I try to, it's been a problem in the past, like I've got a bit of a sweet tooth and I like to eat junk food and stuff, but in recent years I think I've really made progress in eating the whole foods and the nutrient dense food for my health and my mental health as well. And then sunlight and just the basic stuff, yes, the sleep, the exercise, the ice bath, just is really helping me, I think. And so I plan on continuing the way I'm going with the basic health stuff. So again, I probably missed a load of stuff out, and I'll look back at the video and think, why didn't I say this and say that? But and the last thing I want to say is that Nima pointed out to me, because I was like, if I'm putting out some videos that are having a positive effect on people and they're enjoying the video, I'm like, they're going to like the video and they're going to share it and they're going to subscribe or whatever. And that was my mentality. And she was like, no, you need to tell people, because if you don't tell people, then people won't do it. So it's like, okay, so if you think these type of videos are positive, then give me a like and subscribe, because it's going to help me continue. So cheers, thanks.